Yeni bir kahve sohbeti programına hoş geldiniz. Ben Özge Övünsert. Bu programımızda konuğumuz yazar Judy Light Ayyıldız ve kendisiyle hem kitapları hem de yaşamı hakkında konuşacağız. Welcome, Judy.
Thank you very much for having me.
Sure. Well, I would like to talk about your books, of course, but first of all, I would like you to introduce yourself to our audience.
Well, I'm Judy Light Ayyıldız. I've been married to a Turkish doctor for 50 years now. We live in Roanoke, Virginia, and I am an author and educator. And this is my 10th book.
Yes, I can see your titles like educator and writer and musician, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In one of your biography, you said the first half of your life was full of music.
Yes, I was a singer. I was on stage. I directed choirs. I wrote some music and all of these things. Then as I matured, I went back to something that I had started doing when I was very young, which was to write. And I said, I want to be a professional writer. I want to be published in the world, not just in my community. So I learned how to do that and got 2 master's degrees in writing. And before I graduated, I had already I had won a prize in poetry with my book, Smuggled Seeds, which is no longer even in print, and it set me on my path.
Yeah. I see here poetry was always in your life, even during the music year, you know.
Oh yes, yeah. And there's a very close wedding between poetry and music. So the transition, my writing tends to be very full of imagery, like poetry, and very lyrical, like music.
Great. So you have 10 books so far, and the latest book of yours is 40 Thorns.
40 Thorns.
All right, I want to show this to our audience, and I want you to talk about it because I know it's, topic and everything, but I want you to talk about it because it's very, very related to Turks and Turkish culture.
Actually, I guess I have to say I have 11 books because 40 Thorns is translated into Turkish as Kırk Diken. This book is, it's many, many things, but one of the things that it is about the rise of modern Turkey. And so it goes from about 1912 to about 1980. And the heroine's name is Adalat. And she was my mother-in-law, and a year before she died at age 92, she called me to Istanbul to tell me her life. And she told me all of her life, all the way back to age 5. And then I spent 7 years researching the history of Turkey because it was impossible to write about Adalat's life without writing about the Turkish Revolution and the rise of the nation and Ataturk and all those famous people and things like that. And ultimately, it became a woman's love story on a personal level, a woman's love for her country, the rise of the nation, and ultimately it was a novel about the triumph of the human spirit over great loss and devastation, and it serves as it's an epic book, and it serves as kind of a standard for what we can do when we're fighting for a good cause.
Right. Yes, it's definitely an epic book, and you have a poem in the beginning of the book about Adalet.
Yeah.
I want you to read like a couple paragraphs from that poem, but before that, I want to have our Turkish coffee because this program is a coffee time program. So, how would you get your coffee? Like
sade orta.
Sade orta. Okay, let's make it 2 orta.
Okay, great.
And yes, so this poem is about your mother-in-law, Adalet.
This I wrote the year after she died, and I went back to Istanbul to where she had lived. And so it's for Adalat. And it's called Ritual, which is very in keeping with our ritual of the coffee here.
Exactly.
So, ritual. After your death at age 92, I returned to Istanbul, where you spent your final years. I dust your treasures, red gone to ochre, silk flowers, a chipped vase on an oak chair split at the back, a marble Russian swan with head caught preening a folded wing, a crumpled prayer book, a plastic turtle balanced on a Kredi Bankası candy dish. I washed your fingerprints from corners where you made your way from bedroom, bath, and kitchen, your soft smudges at knee level where your hands steadied against gravity. You were determined to walk alone long after time had warped and twisted you down. You pulled up with a strength that had carried you past broken Ottoman relics into the fires of love, devastation, revolution, the loss of 2 of your 7 children, and betrayal again.
Wow, very interesting. She was an interesting person, I believe.
She was a remarkable lady, and Adalat has become, both here in America and in Turkey, she's become a symbol of the spirit of the Turkish Revolution and the building of the nation. Because Ataturk instilled this wonderful spirit into the hearts and the minds of everybody, great teacher that he was. And he made her feel that this is my nation, I can give my blood for it. And so she survived, and she survived with a wonderful spirit of realizing that she had to live for something greater than herself. These people are the backbone of modern Turkey today. Make no doubt about that.
Exactly. So you are very much into Turkish culture and Turkish history.
Yeah.
So that you wrote this, can say, children book, but
Yeah.
it's also for adults as well. And its name is Some of My Ancestors Are Ottomans and Turks.
Yes.
So.
And my husband, I have to give my husband Vidi credit. He also can paint on the side. He's a surgeon, but he's also a very good illustrator. So he illustrated it.
Wow. Yeah, this is a very, very interesting book. I found it very interesting. I'll definitely read it to my daughter. And yeah, I can tell that all your family members are artists.
My son Kent is a filmmaker and a screenwriter, and my son Kamal is a poet and also a visual artist. And he's both of them can be found online. A little.
Wow.
And my daughter kind of holds us all together, and she has my website. My daughter, all of our kids have one Turkish name, one English name. She's Karen Perihan.
Perihan, yeah. She's the youngest one.
She's the youngest one.
Yeah.
Yes.
And she's the manager of the.
She's the manager. She keeps us in line, and says, "No, you can't do that. Not in public."
That's great. So, tell me about your marriage. How did you meet your husband?
Well, I was an innocent young girl in music teachers college, and in April of my junior year, I met this handsome young boy from Turkey who was in a hospital studying general surgery down the street. And some of my girlfriends were dating him, actually. And he had this cute accent and was from this exotic country. And there was a rumor that he was a prince to the last sultan. And we just all went, oh boy, we have to meet him. And so I met him, and then I married him 6 months later.
Wow.
So it stuck, I guess.
He must have fallen in love with you.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Well,
mutual, I believe.
Mutual, yes. It has to be mutual.
So it turned out that he's not prince at all?
Well, he's a prince in the household. But actually his great-great-grandfather was a prince in the ancient city of Harput.
Wow.
So it's not true, but it's not it's not false either.
Yeah, in between. So is he in this book, or all
he is in this book. All of the living characters have fictional names, and this book is a combination of, based on oral history of the woman who lived through the times. It is also actual history. Every bit of the history, I think, is correct. And then it's also fiction, because there are certain things that I had to imagine as close to the truth as possible, what she was really going through. And this book travels all through Anatolia and Thrace. The woman lived all over the country. Her husband was kaimakam and those things, and she was a teacher. She taught the new language and hygiene and many things like that. Yeah. So
she had 7 kids?
She had 7 children. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yep.
Very interesting life, indeed. Okay, so did Adalat live with you here in the United States?
She came to America 4 different times. And she was a very progressive person who was always curious about new things. And she would try to learn the language. She would read the newspapers. She had many friends, actually, in the States. She came to live with me 3 different times, and her name is very apt for her, because she really believed in women's rights, and she conducted herself like an intelligent person.
Well, I can say that Adalat was a feminist of her own time.
Yeah.
And you're a feminist.
Yes, I am.
Your time.
And by the way, let me define feminism. Feminism simply means equality. It doesn't mean we hate men. We love men. But the people who are against equality for women try to make feminism some kind of evil word. So, yes, she was a feminist of her time, and she took advantage of every kind of asset that Ataturk brought into the Republic for her, and continued that until the day she died.
Yeah.
So,
how was your relationship with her? I mean, you were obviously you were close, but how would you communicate? And how was her?
Well, we created a new language of. She spoke a lot of broken English, and I spoke a lot of broken Turkish, and we used sign language.
Right.
And so I memorized all the words that she knew in English, and she memorized all the words that I knew in Turkish, and we would then learn new words every day.
Wow.
And so when you love someone and you have a similar spirit, you can communicate with them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you are working on your 11th book right now?
Yes.
And what is that about?
Well, at this point, I think it's a memoir. It could turn out that it'll be a novel also, but it is about a girl like me growing up in the foothills of West Virginia and coming to realize her own value and worth through education and other things, and taking advantage of any talents that I have, And at the same time, there's a young boy growing up in the foothills of Anatolia and Thrace, and he doesn't know it, but he's slowly working his way toward America to the meeting of this. And it's about the particular challenges that we faced when we married and we started our life together, because at that time it wasn't so common to marry someone who was not from your culture like it is today. Today it's different,
Exactly.
So, but there again, my husband was the first feminist that I met in my life because he was a child of Ataturk.
Right.
He was in that first generation of boys that grew up when Ataturk was still alive, and so that made him really special.
Right. How is coffee?
Oh, I put it on the very lowest. That's why it's taking slower than I hoped. The bubbles are about to come.
So you have a dual citizenship. right?
I do have,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So you're a Turk too.
So I'm a Turk too, yes.
In heart and
Well,
in paper.
you know, I have 3 children and 2 grandchildren who have Turkish heritage, and I seem to be writing so much about Turkey and going to Turkey, and now I'm doing all of these tours with the book. I'm even teaching in Turkey. For example, I've taught in Istanbul, at Erciyes University, at Izmir University, and places like that, writing workshops, because I have a program, by the way. I want Turks to begin to record their oral and their inner memories. And your memory is not only your life, but you remember what your grandmother said to you, or an uncle, or an aunt, or something, because these things are treasures. They're like pieces that should go into a museum. Mm-hmm. And if you're not a writer, you can do it with a microphone. And then we need to have a collection, because the other day some American women's group that I talked to said, how come? They had all read my book, and they said, how come we spend our whole life and we don't know about this Ataturk? You know, every woman should know about Ataturk, and we didn't. We're so glad to read this. And Turks need to spread their story, because their story is varied and wonderful, and such a rich heritage from so many different tribes and groups and religions
Well, you are talking about the personal story here, but also you are touching a little political side of Turkey. Like, you know, especially in the United States, there are like too many talks about the issues we have with Armenians, you know, other countries. But we don't see too many Americans pay attention to these issues.
For my items within this novel that are political, I relied totally and heavily on many historians' work that has been lauded as being defined and true. And so for myself, I'm not a historian, so I had to do that. I'm a writer. I'm particularly interested in how a whole nation of people could have been so together as the Jews and the Greeks and the Armenians and the Turks and the Caucasians and all of this. And then how war is a terrible thing. For example, the Balkan Wars in this book, it comes and rolls like a train wheel over and over. And the Balkan Wars, why does it do that? Because as Adalat says at one point, it was like the Balkan Wars all over again. Because what I was trying to say is that war is war. And war always disperses people, and it always radically changes the landscape forever. And you can never go back forever, ever. You know, so that part of it, the political divisions of people are really kind of an artificial thing that is created by the powers of nations, and the people in power always want something. So,
yeah, I know what you mean, and I think our coffees are coming here. I wanna open a space for coffees here. So you also have a memoir here. I wanna talk about this as well. It's nothing
but time.
But time.
Right.
So there's an interesting story behind this, and I want to...
Yes, it's based on, and actually my husband did the cover of this too. It's based on an illness that I had where I was paralyzed. But during the recovery, there is the power of story, of remembering who you are. And so you have many stories through that tell the story of my life. At times when I was learning to walk or take a step or stand or learning something. And it also has within this book, Adalat is in this book, my husband is in this book, and many people that turn up in 40 Thorns are also in this book, because it becomes then a cross-cultural book. Oh, how lovely.
Enjoy.
Thank you.
That's a real Turkish coffee.
Yes, thank you.
I just hope it tastes the same.
Very
Wonderful.
slowly. Thank you very much. And I can see all foams here.
Actually, there is a story in 40 Thorns toward the end about a trip to Eyüp in Istanbul, where there was a fortune teller, and there is a story about the coffee cup and fate and some things that really happened that were really strange, and they came from the fortune telling.
How about I read your fortune very quickly after you're done? I already know what it's going to
you
say.
do that? Okay, that would be
I can
wonderful.
give you a quick thing. I mean, you're going to write a lot of books. I don't even need to read it.
Oh, you're wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, so how old were you when you had that disease?
About 42. Yes, and it happened very suddenly overnight, but the recovery was really slow. But I was really fortunate because I have, I would say 99% have completely recovered from it.
Thank you very much for being with us today. And
You're welcome.
I would like to remind the name and the it's from Remzi Kitabevi and 40 Thorns, and there is a Turkish version as well, Kırk Diken.
Yes.
Yes, Kırk.
Yes, and you can also find the 40 Thorns on the Smashwords, and so you can read it as an ebook if you like.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Thank you for being with us here today, Judy.
Thank you for having me. It's been my pleasure, and thanks for the Turkish coffee.
Afiyet olsun.
You're welcome. Bir şey değil.